Say chivalry is dead.
Exactly.
Mr. Hayes has shown us all something today. All right, so take out your thesis statements. Open up your books to page 620-ish. So these are hard questions. These are hard questions to answer. They're multifaceted. They're asking you to deal with big ideas like theme and satire. Remember, when you're talking about satire, it's not just enough to say, yeah, they're making fun of modern education. Okay? Well, either what point are they making about modern education, or what would Oscar Wilde like to see in place of what is currently being taught? When you're talking about theme, you're firing up that lava lamp, eating some Cheetos, and turning off the lights, and talking about the world at large, man. So your statement, while it is inspired and rooted in importance of being earnest, is able to be applied to the world, man. So what we're going to do is just see if anybody was able to sort of thread this needle. What we're going to do is I'm just going to have you read your thesis statements today out loud for their questions. You're all going to stand up. If you have a thesis statement that is good to go, you will be able to sit down. If you have a thesis statement that is in need of improvement, the expectation would be that you kind of stand up and awkwardly try to fix it until we give you an opportunity to read something else. So, everyone up?
Hey.
Don't just shirt on us.
Yeah, sorry. Let's have something. Power stance is necessary.
All right, so first question that we could answer, question for discussion 2. Algernon states, I don't play accurately. How does this comment establish a theme for the play? And what other ways does, or throughout, does Algernon not play accurate but expressive? Who took a crack at that one? 0. Okay, great. Question for discussion number 9. Satire, human folly, is held up to ridicule, though humorous, a satire's purpose is to critique seriously that which it mocks. How does Lady Bracknell's interview of Jack as a prospective suitor in Act 1 satirize modern education?
I get that.
All right, let's start with Mr. Hayes.
All right. I said Wilde uses Lady Bracknell to comment on how the upper class didn't want the lower class to become educated, because if they did, then they would understand their poor quality of life.
Read that one more time.
Okay. Wilde uses Lady Bracknell to comment on how the upper class didn't want the lower class to become educated, because if they did, then they would understand their poor quality of life.
So, what you're saying is good, but does it respond to the question, how does Lady Bracknell's, as a prospective suitor, satirize modern education?
I guess that's kind of.
That's I think you're speaking at like Lady Bracknell's attitudes towards education, which is great. And if the question was that, your answer would be great. But in terms of satirizing modern education, it might like slightly miss the mark. What is Wilde saying about modern education?
What he's actually saying is like it's good. Well, through Lady Bracknell, or what is his statement?
Well, Lady Bracknell likes that the education system seems to produce no effect, right? So what is Wilde saying about the modern education system?
It's not really helping
Right.
the way that it should be.
There you go. So what you wrote was a great answer to a different question.
Okay.
Reframe it based on what we just talked about. Mr. Nelson.
Satire, or the descriptive mocking of common folly, is a common theme employed by Wilde. Through Lady Bracknell's preceding prodding conversation with Jack and Miss Prism and ceaseless conversation in the garden, Wilde satirically admits, aside from what the upper class says, English society is in need of educated citizens.
Why is it in need of educated citizens?
Why?
Yeah.
So that people are informed and can make important decisions.
Right. What does modern education, though, focus on? in both the case of Bracknell and Cecily?
Well, they talked about like subjects like geography and language, like German.
German grammar, right? So is that going to be producing is that going to be allowing citizens to be more well-informed and make good decisions?
I mean, Wild suggests, I guess, that he threw them because they mock it kind of like.
Who's mocking it?
Cecily and Miss Prism are talking about it as like those really don't have any influence, or the effect of those topics don't have that much effect over a man's decisions.
Uh-huh.
And Wild would like is saying the opposite, basically, that those actually do have an effect. Is that fair, or?
I think you had a critical doobity-doo. A doobity-doo is defined as a small but important misinterpretation. So I would say that, I mean, Ms. Prism wants Cecily to learn her German grammar, right?
Yeah.
Her wealthy benefactor considers it important that she study this language to become smarter, right? Lady Bracknell is happy that modern education is focused on such things like German grammar because it produces no effect in terms of educating the populace.
Okay, so they're kind of like pointless topics.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so considering that, make the necessary adjustments in your thesis and you're good to go. Anybody else questions for discussion number 9? Mr. Getchell.
In Wild Play, the importance of being earnest satires, the modern education that represents the knowledge between the two classes. It's not good.
Right, you're not saying anything of what is it saying about education and how it relates to the two classes? Education could be used for classes to rise up, but the current state of education doesn't allow that to happen. That's a good thing for Lady Bracknell, but does Wild think that it's especially a good thing? Mr. Hale.
I said Wild satirizes the concept of class in modern education, showing that the upper class is not necessarily educated, using Lady Bracknell's interview with Jack, representing the upper class's ignorance. Wild believes that education is necessary but overlooked by society and specifically its higher class.
Well, that's wonderful, right? They're educated, they know about German grammar, but they're ignorant. They don't know about the world, man. Read your last part again, like the second half of what you wrote.
Wild believes that education is necessary but overlooked by society and specifically its higher class.
Great, and we know that it's necessary because we have a lack of education that's allowing this ridiculous system to stay in place. Brilliant. Anybody else for that one? Hayes, did you fix it?
Yeah, I'll give my new one a shot. Tell me what you think of this one. Wild states his view on modern education with Lady Bracknell and how education produces no effect, arguing that the education system is very flawed and has no focus on useful information.
Great, and I like how you added no focus on useful information. If you just would have left it at very flawed, it wouldn't have been good enough. What is the flaw? And then you stated it. Wonderful.
Good enough.
Good, yeah.
This is for discussion 9.
This was question for discussion number 9. Yep. Okay, you'll stand up. You get to sit down if you say a good one.
Am I reading my thesis?
Yeah, just want to read your thesis. Mr. Durkis.
Lady Bracknell's interrogation of Jack to figure out if he is good for her daughter is satirical of modern education because Wild finds that modern education is pointless to society and that much more important lessons are taught outside of the classroom.
Very good. Yep, crushed it. Mr. Nelson.
Through Lady Bracknell's parting conversation with Jack and Miss Prism and Cecily's conversation in the garden, Wild satirically admits, aside from what every class believes, topics like German grammar have an importance in English society.
You read it too fast for me.
Okay. Through Lady Bracknell's parting conversation with Jack and Miss Prism and Cecily's conversation in the garden, Wild satirically admits, aside from what the upper class believes, topics like German grammar have an importance in English society.
Are you saying that German grammar is important?
Isn't that what Wild believes, or like being educated like that.
Is important?
Yes.
Do we admire the people who are educated like that? Do you feel like Wilde as a playwright thinks that this world that he is portraying is great?
No.
So if the world that he's created is not great, do you think he believes that the education that the people are receiving, like Cecily, is great?
Nope. Yep. Yep.
All right. Anybody else for that bad boy? All right. Questions of style and structure number 1. Anybody? Oh, Getchell, did you fix yours?
So I'm still
Okay.
working on it.
Question, style, structure. All right. How does the scene depict blah 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 satire Victorian society?
I said Wilde introduces his readers to this satire play when setting the scene in a Victorian society by familiarizing us with the type of language and the ridiculous behavior of those who thrive in the Victorian time.
You need to say, like, what is the critique of Victorian society he's trying to make? So class, let's help Miss Headley out for a moment. What is Wilde trying to say about this Victorian society?
It's no bueno,
It is no bueno, right? Why is it no bueno?
because they're overly fancy and.
So they're overly fancy.
I
They
tried
are
to know if I was.
they're ridiculous. Yes. What is he trying to say about it, though? Why is overly fancy bad?
Keeping the poor down.
Okay, so he's trying to satire Victorian society by highlighting how societal structures keep a rigid class system in place. We can put that in there and be good to go. What else is he trying to say about Victorian society in addition to how it creates a class system? Let's consider, just listen to the words I say here for a moment. Let's consider our friend Gwendolyn. Her sweet, sweet idiot Gwendolyn. All right. So Gwendolyn, this is right after she talks with Lady Bracknell. Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mama's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I had over Mama, I lost at the age of 3. That's a fun zinger. What is she saying? Parents stop paying attention to their kids when they are young. At 3 years old. After 3, I could care less about you, kid. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife. So Lady Bracknell might prevent Gwendolyn and Jack from being man and wife. And I may marry someone else. And marry often. So she might prevent us from getting married. And I'm probably going to marry someone else. And then someone else and someone else and someone else and someone else. Nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you. It doesn't make any sense. Why?
Because if she was devoted to him, she'd be like, this.
I will only marry you.
Yeah.
Or I will maybe do a sham marriage because I have to, but my heart will always be with you.
Yeah.
Here she's just kind of casually saying, yeah, I'm going to marry and I'll marry again, but I'm eternally devoted to you. So what is Wilde maybe kind of touching on about modern society or this Victorian society through that?
Skewed sense of morality.
Skewed sense of morality. Okay, so we got classes, we got a skewed sense, and what is the skewed sense of morality, Mr. Schmidt?
Like there's no value to tradition. Like marriage, there's no value.
Engaged is just a word, man. Same way we watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Do you know what episode I'm talking about? Dennis is trying to pursue someone who's engaged. He's like,
Oh,
engaged.
yeah, I like that
It's like,
episode.
engaged is just a word. Don't get hung up on that. Yeah, it's just a word. So things have no meaning. Institutions have no meaning. Relationships have no meaning. It's all about what?
It's all about business transactions.
It's not even a business transaction for Gwendolyn. Why does she like Jack?
His name.
His name, Ernest. That's it. The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mama. What is Jack's romantic origin? What is Jack's romantic origin?
Maybe it's hard. His name.
His name.
No, what's his romantic origin?
Oh.
Where did he come from? A bag in a closet. He was abandoned in a bag, in a closet, in a train station. And Gwendolyn refers to that as his romantic origin. In reality, what kind of origin story is that? That's a sad one. That's how like supervillains are made. Gwendolyn, this is romantic origin. Why is it romantic to Gwendolyn? Why would someone like Gwendolyn consider that romantic?
I don't even know.
Poor baby found in the bag.
Oh, little baby found in a bag. The mystery of not knowing who your parents are. To Gwendolyn, these things are like interesting. It's like why you go to a freak show, right?
No.
And you go to because you want to be entertained, interested in like these weird things. Gwendolyn is interested in this weird thing, but in actuality, it's an incredibly tragic thing. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's plenty of different things to poke about modern Victorian society. Does that make sense, Ms. Headley? So bring it back to the idea of class, bring it back to the idea of twisted morality, of like surface level stuff, and then you're going to be in great shape. Did anybody else have that one? Nope. Super duper. Questions for style and structure number 2. Bunbury.
I have that one.
This one was tough.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
I wish I wouldn't have done
Yeah, a lot of people screwed up this one. You have to say how Bunbury plays an important role in the play. So it can't just be the definition of Bunbury and where it appears. You have to speak to how Bunburying touches on theme or satire or something like that. You think you did it?
I think I did it.
All right, let's hear it.
Maybe. A Bunburyist has many definitions and meanings. One who hides from their own life, a lie to sneak away from others, or a secret cover to promote one for a multiple of reasons. Meanwhile, creating a double life with 2 different characters in the story.
So you just touched on the different meanings of Bunburying. Did you tell me why it's important to the play as a whole?
Because it's 2 characters in 4. Like, that makes sense. I don't know. I thought it was because it. I don't know. I guess anymore.
You would need, like, Bunburying is what? Define it for me again without looking at your computer.
Hurting someone who you're not.
Okay, how does that play a role in the play?
They sneak away.
That's what the whole play is about, right? And the whole play deals with like the consequences of doing that. So what's the consequence of pretending to be somebody that you're not?
A girl falling in love with you.
But that was a good Mr. Carter butt, by the way. But
you can still be that person.
do you think this is all going to turn out?
No.
No. Okay. So you can pretend to be something that you're not, and while you may initially convince somebody to be in love with you, what? The deception is not sustainable. So this whole idea of putting on airs and this idea of this pretend, this can't be something that is either sustainable or this can't serve as the foundation of a healthy society. If everything is predicated on putting on airs, then you're not ever going to achieve anything of substance. So that's kind of what you need to bring the idea, Nick and Mr. Young, of Bunburying back to. So yes, Bunburying means this, and here's how this thing plays a role in the play. Ms. Scanlon, you're sitting down?
I had the same one. I did do right.
Okay, all right, it's okay.
I know it's wrong.
It's a preemptive sit. And Mr. Schmidt, what do you have? Which
The
question?
idea of this one.
Oh, you had Bunburying as well?
Yeah.
Oh, delightful.
The idea of a Bunburyist is crucial to the play because it allows the protagonists, Jack and Algernon, to live double lives for their own temporary gain due to its literal versatility as seen by its literary variation.
Oh, wow, that's just a wonderful turn of the phrase at the end there. Literal and literary. Did you extend it out to theme at any point?
I mean, the idea of living a double life for temporary gain.
And I would just say get a All right. You all know what you need to do to fix yours, right? Or in some cases, yours is already good to go. If yours is already good to go, help a brother out. Evaluate it or evaluate your neighbors.
This is useless.
If it's not good, you have the remaining 3 minutes, not the remaining, you have 3 minutes to fix it up. At 2:22, I just want to rip around the classroom and here's 17 great thesis statements. You are not going to turn these into a paper. This is an exercise in answering a tough question. These are hard questions that demand thought, perspective, and careful phrasing. So we're just getting started with these bad boys. So take 3 minutes, make magic happen, and then we'll grip it and rip it.
Drink all the water.
Yeah, I have to finish it all.
One more minute. Just make Marshall come back to you.
Yeah, you can just give me the notebook. This one?
Question, is this, is this the satire one, or is it the? I forget. Oh, the interview with Lady Bird.
Oh, I didn't. That's because I changed it.
What does it say, the look down? Okay, yeah, so then like, what I did for mine is I just like, added like
Yeah.
on how the modern education doesn't really like work. Okay. So,
Can we get any
you can
better?
work that in, and that'll be juicy.
You tell me.
That sounds worse. That pinky helped.
I think you need some lessons from Mr. Carter.
I know. Every Wednesday. All right. Let's start with Pope.
Okay. I have the Bunburyist one. The term Bunburyist is used in the play to expose the character of those who use it and to provide an understanding of the consequences of relying on dishonesty to avoid responsibility.
What is the consequence of relying on dishonesty to avoid responsibility?
That eventually the truth will find them out. Like, they're gonna eventually, like, somebody will find out. that
So
they're not.
get the consequence in there, and then you're good to go. Ms. Scanlon.
Jack the Bunburyist. Leading a life of scandalism and being more than one person in the city and in the country, fooling all those around him in hopes of keeping his one true love.
So that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Is that going to work out? Why won't it work out? Get that in there.
Okay, consequence.
Ms. Headley.
Wilde introduces his readers to this satire of Victorian society in a play by familiarizing us with the type of language they use, and even uses their own language to critique them and the ridiculous behavior, social system, and their many skewed values of the characters.
It was a, it was a big lead up. You could shorten the beginning and just cut right to the chase at the end. The end is the great part. Roy, you were already good to go. Mr. Bushinger.
The made-up term Bumburius has various meanings, where one may deceive others to benefit for himself, which allows the characters to live two separate lives, but not without the consequence of someone discovering the truth.
Yeah, you got the consequence in there.
Okay.
Yep. Good job. Mr. Ketchel.
In Wilde's play, Importance of Being Earnest satires about education through the interview of Lady Bracknell and Jack to demonstrate the look down on lower classes being educated on the modern education between societies.
Read that. Start with the part around lower class.
Oh, the look down on the lower classes being educated on modern education between societies.
What are you trying to say there?
Like how the higher class looks down. Yeah, looks down on the lower class being smart system. So
The higher class looks down on the lower class because the lower class has no education. However, the education that is being used for the higher class isn't of any importance, of any consequence. So it's a little ironic in that way. Everyone's uneducated. Poor is uneducated because they're not getting an education. High class is uneducated because they're learning about stuff that doesn't really matter. Okay, you were good to go, Mr. Schmidt.
The concept of a Bunburyist is crucial to the play as it creates double lives for the protagonist, which creates an unsustainable life of deception through its literal versatility as seen by its literary variation.
Way to keep that bad boy in there. Yep, good job. Way to go, Flash. Steve?
I also did the Bumburius. I'm just gonna, I'll rework the 9. Another one. You have Bumburius utilized by central Jack analogy as an alter ego to satisfy their own personal needs. While it is initially pleasurable, they are not sustainable facades.
Because
Eventually the truth.
Yep. Mr. Young.
Bumburius has many definitions, meaning one hides in their own life, a lie to secret, others a secret covered in complicated agendas, and creating double lives for two characters, causes them the misfortune of their true identities being discovered.
Yeah. Yep, we can work with that. Alrighty, so that was our first crack at answering that, boys. Answer these bad boys. Save these so that you can come back to them later. Said we're not turning these into papers, but you need to be able to have ideas, big ideas, to answer these big questions. And these were examples of big ideas that answered big questions. Bust out your books and open it up to the end of Act Uno. Just want to touch on something funny before we head into Act Dos here. That's Spanish for 2.
Really?
Those of you that didn't know.
No, like
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah, but that's because I'm too busy learning
How to sleep?
Yeah. And I'm gonna be really good at it by the end of this year. Straight in. I mean, I slept until like 10:30 today, if that makes you feel better. You get some of that. Yeah,
All right. Hang on. 589 is where we're going to start. Just quickly glance at the end of 589. So we bring up class. We don't really meet that many people from the lower class, right? Who do we meet from the lower class? Lane. That's it. Jack's a fancy pants. Even though he was born in a handbag.
And he doesn't even
Yeah,
have
but
any
this
parents.
handbag.
Doesn't have any parents. Like, idiot, but yeah, just it's not misfortune. It's definitely carelessness.
It was a decent bag.
Let's hang out. Let's hang out with Lane for a moment. Algernon, glass of sherry, Lane. Yes, sir. Tomorrow, Lane. I'm going bunburying. Yes, sir. I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put my dress clothes in my smoking jacket and all the Bunbury suits. So when Algernon goes on these adventures, he's got his own suits dedicated for this purpose. So Algernon is a proficient Bunburyist. Lane, yes, sir. And then here's where we get to have some fun. Algernon, I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane. It never is, sir. Yeah, it's just delivered matter of fact like that. So what is Lane's life like? It is bad. Hope tomorrow's a fine day. It never is, sir. Lane, Algernon responds to this incredibly depressing thing. Lane, you are a perfect pessimist. So to Algernon, why would Lane be a perfect pessimist?
He sees the downside.
Not necessarily. Think about setting bars in life.
Doesn't have his goals.
If your bar is always,
You don't have expectations.
You don't gotta jump.
you don't got to jump too high. So, I mean, will Lane ever be disappointed about his day?
No, because it's always.
No, because he knows it's always going to be terrible. Yeah. So there's kind of like a weird comfort in that, but it's also incredibly depressing. I do my best to give satisfaction, sir. So, yep, I do my best to be sad for you, Algernon. Jack, there's a sensible, intellectual girl. Who's he talking about? Gwendolen. Is Gwendolen sensible? How do we know she's not sensible? Ernest. Is she intellectual?
No.
How do we know she's not intellectual?
Just by the way she talks.
She considers herself intellectual.
I thought she was like kind of smart though. Just not.
Be careful on what she says about her intelligence and what is actually going to be delivered. You not so much in Act 1, but coming up here, we'll see a significant difference. Pseudo-intellectual. The only girl I ever cared for in my life, Algernon is laughing. Why?
Because he knows that
He sees
Gwen is not.
He knows it's
He sees right through it. Hey, so who is our truth teller in this play? Even though Algernon is going to be the one that everyone, the one that everyone speaks ill of throughout. Lastly, Algernon. I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious. How can scrapes be the only thing that are never serious? Scrapes are kind of like odd situations. What odd situation could Algernon be entering? He's going Bunburying, right? So what would be an odd situation related to Bunbury?
If you tell lies and someone calls you out,
You get found out, right? Exactly. So I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious. How can scrapes never be serious? What?
Would it be like?
What'd you say? Said something about death.
Die from the scrape.
Right. You'll never. Wait, will Algernon die pretending to be Bunbury? No. Right. So it's not a life and death seriousness to a scrape. What's the worst thing that can happen because of your scrape?
You get embarrassed.
You get embarrassment, right? Now to Jack, where is embarrassment on the level of bad things that can happen? Where is it related to death?
Pretty high.
Almost higher than death to Jack. But Algernon's able to see that this is all just fun and games. Jack, oh, that's nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense. Algernon, nobody ever does. Now, how is Lady Bracknell's nonsense different than Algernon's nonsense?
Because Lady Bracknell, and just like most of Victorian society, or at least in Algernon's eyes, is just like a front.
Right.
Everyone just acts to be pish posh around each other.
Whereas Algernon's nonsense is
Yeah,
what?
He ain't about that. He's just living his life.
Yeah, he's almost like manipulating the nonsense for his own amusement, whereas everybody is trying to adhere to the nonsense for their own personal stature gain. All right, we need a Miss Prism. Miss Prism is like a angry old mom who wants to sound smart, but she's actually dirty. That came out weird, but yeah, dirty old woman.
Jeez.
Need a Lady B, not Lady B, Lady P, Miss P. Ben, you looked at me, so you're gonna be Miss Prism. You got like harsh, shrill, nagging. We need a Cecily. Cecily ends up being the object of Algernon's desire. Wyatt?
Oh, I forgot to grab the book.
Classic Cecily. Dirkus will share with you, and then Dirkus can read off of Hunters. All right, that'll do us for a little bit. Let's start reading and going into a deep dive here. Miss Prism, calling.
Cecily, surely utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Bolton's duty than yours, especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We'll repeat yesterday's lesson.
All right, so what's ridiculous about Miss Prism right off the bat? Three people are talking at the same time. What's ridiculous about Miss Prism? What does she say?
German is very important.
All right, why is that ridiculous?
Why is German?
She doesn't just say it's very important. What does she call it?
Intellectual pleasure.
Intellectual pleasure. What's your intellectual pleasure?
Spanish.
Spanish?
Like hobbies.
Hobbies, yeah. My intellectual pleasure is basketball season just started. So I love trying to pick apart the New York Knicks pick and roll defensive coverages. Intellectual pleasure. Ton of fun. Somebody earlier mentioned like music as an intellectual pleasure. What makes these things intellectually pleasurable?
They're enjoyable.
They're enjoyable. They're multifaceted, right? You can inject yourself in there. Miss Prism's calling what an intellectual pleasure? Your German grammar? Can that be intellectually pleasurable?
Maybe
No.
if you're like a German grammar.
What if you're a young girl in the countryside who is incredibly wealthy? Probably not something that's intellectually pleasurable. I was in German class in high school for 4 years, and I can remember one thing, two things. Guten Tag, hello. Wie geht's heute? How are you today? And ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch. Which, I am a foreigner and don't speak good German. I could not respond to anybody who reacts to any of my sentences. Like, remember those German exchange students we had last year? Way over my head. And the one German thing I did know got me in trouble with an old naked German man in Germany. We went to Germany, class trip, 4 years of German. We're in a sauna. It's a small sauna because in Europe everything's small. So I'm sitting there with my 3 buddies in a 4-person sauna. And we're sitting kind of almost knee to knee. We have our swimsuits on because we are young American boys. And then all of a sudden, into the sauna comes in old German man, takes off his towel, butt naked, and sits down and just starts rattling off a bunch of German words that nobody knows. And so we immediately look at each other, and he's a nice old German man, but an old naked German man to boot. So we immediately look at each other, and we're like, well, we have to find a way to politely excuse ourselves here. And friend A goes, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And the German guy is, auf Wiedersehen, auf Wiedersehen. That's a good one. Can't use the same one. The other friend to my right is like, well, I think I got to go check on something in the room. It's like, oh, okay, the room, that was a good one. So he's gone. And then it's just me and rando German guy, yeah, who's just like hanging out like this. Blah, 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 blah. Like, oh my God. And so I'm like, wait a minute. I do my trump card. I know one German phrase. Ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch. To which he starts going, 99999. You speak good Deutsch. You speak good Deutsch. Because I could say my one German phrase. He thought I spoke good German. And he just rattled on for like 15 minutes. And I was just dumbfounded. Finally, I was like, okay, bye. Not polite. He later probably killed someone because I offended his delicate German sensibilities by just removing myself from the sauna. Long story short, German is pointless. Don't learn German. It only gets you into trouble. All right.
That was good.
Cecily.
Well, I don't like German. It isn't all at all of a coming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
From the whoopee cushion. So Cecily, why doesn't Cecily like German? So she doesn't like Germans' appearances, right? She doesn't like what she sounds like or what she looks like while reading German. So it's like one thing to not like German because it's pointless, but here we have somebody not liking German just because it doesn't look cool. Miss Prism.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he is leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his grandmother demeanor is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
Who is this Uncle Jack?
Oh, I got it.
Ernest in the city, Jack in the country. All right, so
the Victorian equivalent of having 2 cell phones.
Precisely. So this Jack that Cecily's talking about is the same Jack that was just speaking to Algernon, right? So it's not just like Jack is in the country and he's hanging out by an assumed name and he's in the city just having fun. What does Jack have in the country? Yeah, he's in charge of Cecily, right? And he's hired Miss Prism. He is a man with a house and people that know him in the country. And he wants to be married in the city as... How would that work?
That wouldn't.
So he's going to have his Gwendolyn wife as Ernest in the city, and then he's going to go home to family, Cecily, Miss Prism in the country? What is this guy's deal? And yet Miss Prism and Cecily consider him what type of person? A serious, honest man who's all about serious things. Is Jack about serious things? I don't know. Let's carry on. Cecily.
Oh. I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember that his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
And that unfortunate young man, his brother, is what? Yeah, his excuse that he uses to get out of the country into the city.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geology and things that are kind of that kind of influence a man very much.
Why is that statement stupid and ridiculous? What is she suggesting?
She could fix Ernest with geology and German.
Right, why is that ridiculous?
Because it's geology in German.
Right. Is our geology in German going to have any effect on a person?
No.
Their moral fiber and constitution and make them better? No. Cecily begins to write in her diary. Miss Prism shaking her head.
I don't even think even I could produce an effect on a character that, according to his brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure that I would desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favor of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
How is Miss Prism like Lady Bracknell in that moment?
Controlling her.
She's controlling.
Somewhat.
Absolutely. She is like she to Cecily is like Lady Bracknell to Gwendolyn. What about in terms of the way in which Miss Prism sees the world, as expressed in that little doodad? How is
Both kind of like of the opinion that like if your life sucks, it's not my problem, and like if you got there, you deserve to be there.
you get what you deserve. Things need to stay the way they are. I mean, think about how cruel is this sentence. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people. What is she saying there?
You're mad. You're lost cause.
You're a lost cause. There's no chance for people to reform. She calls it a modern mania, right? So that's kind of getting back to the old Bracknell business of you are who your parents are. All right, Cecily.
I'll keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget about all of them.
Is that country on it?
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Stop. So here we have a debate between diary and memory. What is Cecily's position?
Her diary is better.
Why?
The memory's recorded. You may not remember correctly.
And Miss Prism's position is what? Why?
That's all you need. It carries on with you.
And then Cecily responds to that by saying, yes, but what about memory?
Things it doesn't even think of.
And you remember things that, when you're remembering something, what are you likely to do if you're remembering something that's controversial? Yeah, you're supposed to remember it the way you want to remember it. Everyone's their own hero, right, in the memory. They are the victim. They are the person who champions something. But is that always the case? No, this is going to play this idea of memory versus not is going to be important in a little bit. All right. Cecily, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Let's speak slightly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like any novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
So why does that make sense for Miss Prism? To have the good end happy and the bad end unhappy?
Because that's how she wants the world to be.
That's how she wants the world to be. Yep. Cecily.
I suppose, but it seems very unfair. Was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in a sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
Okay. The fun with language there. She says her novel was abandoned. If she just left it at that, what does that mean? If I abandon a novel, what does that mean? I choose to stop writing it. But then she goes on to say, in the sense that it was lost or mislaid. So she didn't choose to stop writing her novel. She lost her novel. She misplaced her novel. But she presents it as, I abandoned the novel. Abandoned in the sense of I lost or mislaid it. I killed a deer in the sense that I captured it and slit its throat in front of its child. These just kind of just having fun with language. All right, carry on.
But I see Dr. Chasuble coming up to the
Chasuble.
Chasuble.
Chasuble. Let's go with Chasuble. That's a fun one. Chasuble.
Okay. Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
Enter Canon Chasuble. Canon Chasuble means that he's a holy man. And how are we this morning, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
All right, so what's going on here? Cecily's like all of a sudden, hey, Miss Prism, you got a headache. You better go on a walk with Dr. Chasuble in the garden.
Setting him up.
Setting them up. Cecily sees sparks flying. She's trying to make it happen. But Miss Prism is so dumb, she doesn't even see that like the little wink and a nod.
Miss Prism.
No, she's Subo.
Oh. I hope, Cecily, that you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Ahem. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet. Now, the metaphor based upon bees could be a wink and a nod to the birds and the bees, which is a wink and a nod to health class. Okay. And, and the scandal. We will end there. Finish the next page, 592 for tomorrow. Yeah, starting to get into some health class stuff.
Oh yeah, then you get the
I just
book.
Video
turned out pretty good.
What?
Video turned out pretty good.
I love that.
Did it turn out better than it would have had you just filmed it on the spot yesterday?
And what you got for class right now?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Wait, where is this?
We should go in the
None of it's really
I don't know if we can just go in the
Can't wait.
I'll go after school usually.
Lindenberg,
Is that Carter's guitar?
No, it's Mike.
Lindenberg, come to your home. Lindenberg.
What?
Where is this taking place?
British countryside.
Okay. We were talking about London. I was like, wait, where are we?
Well, now we are in the countryside. When Jack and Ernest were talking in the beginning, they were in London, but now we've moved out to the country.
Okay, Drakish, I ain't going to get
Hello, Dorcas.
Oh, you should actually Montgomery and should we reenact it for him?
I think it's great because I get Aaron Jones, Mark Harris.